Welcome to the deep dive. We're kicking things off today by looking at 10x thinking. Forget just trying to, double your results. We're diving into how aiming for tenfold growth can unlock these surprising levels of transformation in your life, in your work.
Yeah, and this isn't just some like motivational fluff, right? Our exploration, it's really rooted in the book 10x is Easier Than 2x by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Right.
And they really challenge that ingrained idea that bigger goals automatically mean more struggle.
Exactly. Our mission here is to really dig into the core of 10x thinking and figure out, how you can actually use these principles professionally, personally.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack that counterintuitive idea that shooting for the moon can sometimes be a more straightforward path than just taking a small step forward.
And maybe just to frame why this is so important right now, consider Peter Diamandis' take on the book.
Yeah.
He calls it the roadmap for you to thrive during times of major, exponential change.
Wow.
That immediately tells you that understanding this isn't just a nice to have. It could be, crucial for navigating what's coming.
Okay, yeah. Let's unpack this then. Let's look at a classic example, something that really embodies 10x thinking way before it even had a name.
Okay.
Let's talk about Michelangelo and his ambition right out of the gate to sculpt a 9-foot life-sized Hercules, his very first major project.
What strikes me immediately is just the sheer audacity of that. I mean, here's this young artist, basically a beginner.
Yeah.
Hadn't even been paid for a 3D sculpture before, and he decides his debut will be this monumental 9-foot figure. It's almost unthinkable. What kind of mindset allows for that kind of leap?
It really makes you wonder, and it was this seemingly impossible goal that forced him into this period of intense growth. He became completely absorbed in mastering human anatomy. Our sources detail how he just relentlessly studied animals, conducted so many human dissections.
Which was, not exactly straightforward back then.
Yeah. No. Bordering on, ethically questionable behavior, frankly, in his desperation to learn. But he gained this anatomical knowledge that apparently surpassed even seasoned professionals. It wasn't just studying, it was like total immersion.
That level of commitment, it really highlights a key difference, I think, between a 2x and a 10x mindset.
How so?
Well, a smaller goal, something more within reach, it wouldn't have demanded that kind of radical, almost obsessive pursuit of knowledge.
Right.
It raises a question for you, listening. What level of transformation are your current goals actually requiring of you? Are they pushing you to fundamentally evolve? Or just do more of the same?
That's a good point. And beyond the intense study, his planning was incredibly detailed. He went through countless sketches, meticulously working out Hercules' posture, the exact emotions he wanted to convey.
The prep work was huge.
Huge. And as he got closer to finishing, his focus became almost singular. He was working these crazy long hours, practically forgetting to eat, just pushing himself to the absolute limit.
That intense dedication really brings to mind T.S. Eliot's idea of complete simplicity, costing not less than everything.
Oh, yeah.
It suggests that achieving that profound level of focus, that kind of impact, often requires just shedding everything else.
Yeah.
Total commitment.
And the reward was significant. He was just 19 when the Hercules was finally finished, and word spread like wildfire. The Strozzi family offered him 100 golden florins, a massive amount of money, for a young, unknown artist in Florence then.
Completely changed his life.
It totally changed his standing.
So if we connect this back, Michelangelo's early effort, it perfectly illustrates this 10x process, right?
Yeah.
He set a target so far beyond his existing abilities that just reaching it necessitated a fundamental shift in his skills, his dedication, even his identity as an artist.
Right.
It wasn't just about making a sculpture. It was about becoming a different caliber of artist in the process.
It really underscores that Michelangelo wasn't, born a master.
Yeah.
He became one by relentlessly chasing what seemed impossible.
He embraced the risk.
Embraced the risk, put in that incredibly focused effort, and it fundamentally altered the course of his life. So a key takeaway here isn't just the impressive outcome, but the transformative journey that the audacious goal itself ignited.
What's really insightful here is how this story naturally leads us to understand that 10x isn't simply about doing 10 times more of the same thing.
Right. It's qualitative.
Exactly. It's a qualitative leap. It's about achieving a significantly higher level of quality, fostering genuine innovation. Think about the difference between someone who just churns out a lot of mediocre work
Yeah.
and someone whose creations have a lasting impact.
Exactly. Look at Michelangelo's enduring legacy. It's not about the sheer volume of his output, though he was prolific. It's the breathtaking quality. Our sources contrast his legendary status with those who might be constantly busy, but ultimately achieve very little of lasting value, just busy work.
And if we link this to the bigger picture, like why do we strive for growth? The book proposes that expanding your freedom is the ultimate aim. This really resonates with Dr. James Carson's idea of the infinite game.
Infinite and finite game.
Right. The infinite game is about continuous self-transformation, playing for the long term. That's the 10x mindset. It's opposed to the finite game of 2x thinking, where you might get stuck just maintaining the status quo because you're afraid of losing what you have.
Like trying to win a promotion and then just stopping?
Exactly. Or hitting a financial target and plateauing.
Yeah.
The infinite game is continuous learning, evolving.
So 10x thinking isn't about staying comfortable. It's embracing that infinite game of constantly evolving. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The book actually argues that 10x can be simpler than 2x.
Which sounds completely backwards.
It does. Totally counterintuitive.
But let's go back to that T.S. Eliot quote. Complete simplicity, costing not less than everything.
Okay.
In the 10x context, achieving that profound simplicity, it also demands just radically shedding anything that isn't absolutely essential to reaching that massive goal.
So 10x acts like this incredibly powerful filter.
Exactly.
It forces you to ruthlessly eliminate everything that doesn't directly contribute to that tenfold growth. It makes your focus laser sharp.
It's about letting go of the things you don't truly, deeply want, or maybe the things that are just okay, but not great.
Precisely. And this filtering effect, it becomes even clearer when we think about setting seemingly impossible goals. Dr. Barnard's analogy about profit growth illustrates this so well. If you ask, how do we increase profits by 10%?
You get a million answers.
Right. You're faced with this almost infinite number of possibilities. It can actually make it harder to decide where to focus.
But if you ask, how do we grow profits tenfold?
Suddenly, most of those conventional, incremental approaches just, poof, they disappear.
Yeah, they're clearly not enough.
The sheer scale of the goal forces clarity and specificity. You start to pinpoint the very few high-upside conditions that truly deserve your limited attention.
It's almost like the magnitude of the challenge clarifies the path forward, oddly enough.
And that's the surprising practicality of these seemingly impossible goals. They immediately help you distinguish what's genuinely effective from what's just keeping you busy.
Whereas small, incremental goals, they often don't require that fundamental reevaluation of your whole approach.
You just tweak things.
Right. You might just tweak a few things here and there. No major shift needed.
Okay, let's make this tangible. Let's bring in a real-world example. Carson Holmquist and his company, Stream Logistics.
Oh, yeah, the transportation company. Good one.
They saw steady, linear growth initially, went from like 3 people to 30. Nothing explosive, but, consistent progress.
What's particularly insightful here, I think, is that it was joining strategic coach Dan Sullivan's program that really guided Carson to even consider that 10x level of growth.
Right.
And he came to this realization that despite their initial success, he himself had become the biggest bottleneck in the company's expansion.
He was putting in like 50 hours a week, deep in the weeds on every single aspect, micromanaging, basically.
Classic entrepreneur trap.
Totally. Constantly firefighting, dealing with daily urgent stuff, which left him basically zero time for the kind of strategic thinking needed for big growth.
So his journey towards 10x, it began with this deliberate effort. Took him like 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
To build a capable, self-managing leadership team. He intentionally stepped back from the day-to-day. By 2019, his company had grown, maybe 40 people, and it was functioning largely independently of his constant intervention.
And with that newfound freedom, he was finally able to step back and really analyze his business strategically.
Right.
He started thinking about that Dan Sullivan concept, who do you want to be a hero to? And he realized he had 2 very distinct types of clients.
Yeah, this is key.
What he called routine freight and high-stakes freight.
And it's crucial to get the difference here. Routine freight, that was the vast majority of their customers, like 95%.
Wow.
But their needs were pretty straightforward, very price sensitive, which naturally leads to just linear growth potential. High-stakes freight, though, that involved complex, specialized, often really time-sensitive logistics, much higher profitability, and the potential for nonlinear exponential growth.
So Carson had this really bold idea. let's completely shift our focus to only high-stakes freight.
And essentially walk away from.
Walk away from the vast majority of their existing business. You can only imagine the reaction from his team.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it must have felt incredibly risky to deliberately turn away 95% of your clients and 85% of existing profits.
Yeah.
The sales team, especially, they apparently really struggled with the idea, like drastically narrowing their prospect list. It went against everything they'd been doing.
And Carson stuck with it. It reportedly took about 6 months for the team to fully buy into this new direction.
That takes conviction.
It does. And what happened next really highlights the power of this 10x mindset. They discovered there was actually a much larger market for high-stakes freight than they'd initially thought. And the complexity of those projects, it actually led to significant new learning and development within their operations team. They were forced to up their game.
So the challenge itself spurred growth.
Exactly. This story perfectly illustrates that critical principle, that a huge chunk of your current clients' activities, even your ways of thinking the book, suggests around 80%.
Yeah, the 80-20 rule applied differently.
Right. It can become a major obstacle to 10x growth and often needs to be intentionally let go. It reminds me of Jim Collins' good is the enemy of great.
Mm-hmm. Or that rather blunt cancer in your arm analogy they use.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to make really difficult cuts for true health and growth.
Okay, so strategically letting go of that 80% seems crucial. Now let's explore another key piece, the concept of who, not how.
Yes, very important.
Our next example is Linda McKissack, real estate. She actually started with a restaurant that, well, didn't make it.
Right, but she didn't let that stop her. In real estate, she achieved that significant 10x growth. Initially, by focusing on her 20%, which for her was listing better positioned, higher value properties.
Okay.
And then crucially, she increasingly applied who, not how. She strategically hired buyer's agents, marketing support, admin help
Right.
to handle the tasks that weren't her core strength.
It's that smart move, investing in who's capable people to take over the 80% of tasks that, you either don't enjoy, aren't great at, or that just don't leverage your unique abilities.
Absolutely. It frees you up to really concentrate on what you do best, your zone of genius.
And it worked for Linda. By 1992, she was the top agent in her entire city. Her business just grew exponentially.
And this pattern continued, right?
Yeah.
Each time she deliberately let go of her current 80% and focused on a higher level 20%, it triggered another big leap.
That's such a powerful way to visualize it, constantly identifying your most impactful activities and proactively delegating the rest. She even transitioned to becoming a Keller Williams franchise owner, which effectively shifted her old 20% listing properties into her new 80% of managing the franchise.
Which she then, in turn, started delegating within that new role. It's a continuous cycle of elevation.
Exactly. And what's really noteworthy is she invested in that franchise for several years without taking an income.
Wow.
Based purely on her conviction in the potential for a long-term 10x, maybe even 100x return.
That really underscores the long-term vision that's often part of a true 10x mindset. It's not about the quick win. It's about building something substantial.
So both Carson and Linda, different industries, but they both found that identifying their core strengths and strategically offloading the rest was key to unlocking that tenfold growth. Now let's shift focus slightly. Let's explore how elevating your own personal standards and identity plays into 10x. Let's look at Chad, the wealth manager.
Okay.
Early on, he made this conscious decision. I'm only working with clients who have a minimum of $100,000 to manage.
Which his manager wasn't thrilled about, right?
No. Skeptical, pressured him to just take anyone. But Chad held firm.
And to make that work, he became incredibly dedicated. First one in, last one out, constantly studying, networking, putting in the effort while his peers were maybe taking it easier.
Yeah, and for the first 6 months, almost constant rejection, hundreds of calls a day, no new clients meeting his standard.
That must have been tough, really discouraging.
Immensely. But then he got a call back from someone he'd contacted months before, ready to retire, $600,000 to invest.
Boom, validation.
Huge validation of his elevated standards.
It's a powerful illustration. Sometimes you just have to hold firm to your vision, even when the results aren't immediate.
Right. And Chad kept attracting clients at that higher minimum, but he didn't stop there.
No.
He eventually started his own private fiduciary wealth advisory firm, another move to elevate his mastery, serve even higher-level entrepreneurial clients. He was constantly pushing his own boundaries.
He was constantly 10xing himself, you could say.
Wow.
Always striving to stay ahead, even of his biggest clients. in terms of knowledge and insight.
And just like Linda, he embraced who, not how. Brought on an executive assistant, a team of specialists.
To handle the more routine stuff.
Exactly, to handle the 80%.
And the impact on his time was dramatic, wasn't it?
Huge. He went from spending over 200 days a year in the office to just around 30.
Wow. Allowing him to focus solely on those high-value activities, his unique expertise.
It really echoes Greg McKeown's idea, right? Achieving more by intentionally removing more.
Yeah, essentialism. It's about simplifying your focus by constantly evaluating, does this meet my 10x filter? If not, let it go.
And it's worth noting, as Chad elevated his standards, he did hit resistance from some existing 2x clients, even friends who were maybe more comfortable with the old way.
That's a common thread, isn't it? When you make those big upward shifts, not everyone gets it or supports it immediately.
Yep, that's natural.
But embracing that 10x process, it often leads to profound internal and external evolution. The book actually brings in Dan Sullivan's 4C's formula here.
Right, commitment,
courage, capability, and confidence. It's like a framework for that process of elevating standards and evolving your identity. You need the commitment first, then the courage to step out, then you build the capability, and finally, you gain the confidence from seeing results.
So these examples really hammer home that 10x isn't just a bigger version of what you're already doing.
No, it demands a fundamental shift.
In mindset, in approach. And that brings us to a crucial idea. Just putting in more hours isn't the key.
No, it's the direction of that effort that truly determines the outcome.
Precisely. Setting small, incremental goals, it doesn't typically force that essential evolution or drive big innovation.
You might get more efficient at your current tasks.
Yeah, optimize the status quo.
But you're not fundamentally improving your capabilities or transforming results. You're just deepening existing habits, maybe even bad ones.
And this connects directly to that Naval Ravikant insight. It's not just 10,000 hours of practice.
Right.
It's 10,000 iterations specifically directed towards that 10x upgrade. That's what creates outliers.
Practice. Without that ambitious qualitative target, it might just solidify existing patterns, even if they aren't leading anywhere significant.
It's like diligently focusing on collecting bronze coins, as the book puts it. When you could be strategically pursuing gold coins by raising your standards and aiming for something truly transformative, your effort needs alignment.
Yeah, alignment with that higher level vision.
Now, we've talked a lot about being better, but the book also emphasizes the power of being different.
Ah, yes, Mr. Beast.
Let's talk about Jimmy Donaldson, Mr. Beast, and his wild success on YouTube.
His journey is a fantastic illustration. Achieving massive results doesn't always mean being 10 times better quantitatively.
Right.
He suggests that often being just maybe 10 to 20% better and crucially distinctly different in your approach,
That's the key part.
that can lead to 4 or 5, even 10 times the impact. He didn't just make slightly better videos, he created a whole new kind of content.
Yeah, a new genre almost that really highlights the qualitative nature of 10x again. It's about an evolution that makes what you do stand out, become almost incomparable because it's just fundamentally different.
Creating your own category, in a way.
Exactly.
And sometimes achieving that difference requires making really bold, even scary moves, including letting go of what worked in the past.
Like Darwin Smith at Kimberly-Clark.
Yes. His radical decision as CEO to sell off their traditional coated paper mills.
The company's core business for over 100 years. A reliable moneymaker.
Huge move. But his conviction was that the company's future, its path to real greatness, lay in the consumer business. Kleenex, Huggies.
Right.
It was such a clear example of needing to deliberately let go of a successful past to unlock that 10x potential in a completely different direction.
That takes immense conviction. Now, all this talk about external results might make you think 10x is purely about outward success.
But there's a crucial internal driver, too.
Right. Let's look at Dan Sullivan's own personal turning point after a really rough patch in his life.
Yeah, back in 1978. Divorce and bankruptcy, same day.
Oof. A major low point. But it led to this profound realization for him.
What was that?
That he hadn't been truly living in alignment with what he genuinely wanted. He'd often settled for what felt, attainable or necessary, operating from limitation, not desire.
That makes sense. So what did he do?
That pivotal moment led him to adopt this powerful daily practice. journaling specifically about what he truly wanted.
Just writing down his want.
Yeah, intentionally training himself to make decisions and live his life based on his deepest desires. Embracing a mindset of freedom, abundance. He did this for over 25 years. Came to identify himself as a powerful wanter.
A powerful wanter. I like that.
That's a compelling idea, right? That wanting what you truly desire needs no external justification, and that pursuing those desires, creating wealth and freedom through them, can actually benefit the world. It's such a stark contrast to a needing mindset, which is often rooted in scarcity, fear of loss.
And this focus on what you genuinely want, it naturally leads to the idea of your unique ability.
Yes.
Like, consider skateboarder Paul Rodriguez, P-Rod. An incredibly long, innovative career because he kept evolving and staying connected to what he does best.
Yeah, and even early on, he had this remarkable self-belief, confidently demanding a signature shoe from Nike.
Operating from want, not need.
Exactly. He wanted that recognition, that creative control, not desperately needing any sponsorship deal.
It brings to mind the George Bernard Shaw analogy, the tailor who takes your measurements anew each time.
Ah.
It highlights the importance of constantly understanding and valuing your current evolving abilities. And Peter Drucker's powerful response to Csikszentmihalyi
Oh, what was that?
about focusing solely on the work you were uniquely fitted to do and just ruthlessly discarding distractions. It really drives this point home. Maximize your inherent strengths.
It sounds almost deceptively simple. Just do what you're best at.
Right. But truly committing to and operating within your unique ability, while it feels natural, it's often the most challenging path, but also the most rewarding. Requires constant self-awareness, discipline.
Okay, so as you're striving for these big 10x goals, cultivating the right internal perspective is absolutely crucial. The book introduces this powerful distinction, the gap versus the gain. Can you unpack that?
Absolutely. The gap. That's that common tendency we all have to constantly measure where we are now against some idealized future state.
Right. Always focused on how far you still have to go.
Exactly. And it can really undermine your confidence, devalue your achievements, devalue the progress you've already made. It just breeds dissatisfaction.
We've all felt that, right? That nagging, I'm not where I should be yet.
Totally.
Yep.
The book uses that funny example of kids being unhappy with a perfectly good dinner because it's not the ideal meal they imagined.
Yeah. And that persistent gap mindset, it can actually hinder your future growth. It keeps you feeling inadequate, erodes motivation.
Ironically, it can even become addictive, right? You achieve more and more, but your underlying confidence actually decreases because you're always focused on the next unmet goal.
So what's the alternative? The gain.
The gain is where you intentionally measure your progress backward. You take time to acknowledge, to genuinely appreciate how far you've already come. This fundamentally shifts your perspective. It makes the 10x journey much more enjoyable, more sustainable. It lets you learn and grow from every experience, successes and setbacks, without being constantly weighed down by feeling like you're not there yet.
It's about consciously recognizing those past 10x leaps you've already made. I mean, learning to walk was a 10x leap.
Right. Or learning a language, starting a business. Recognizing those builds a foundation of confidence for future growth and helps you see how your unique ability has been developing all along.
It's about giving yourself credit for the journey. That makes sense.
And speaking of transformation, the book also touches on qualitative time, this idea of Kronos versus Chiros.
Okay, explain that.
Think of Kronos as that linear quantitative time, the ticking clock, schedules, deadlines, bureaucratic time almost.
Got it.
Chiros is different. It's a qualitative, transformative view of time. It's about those opportune moments, that deep time where real creativity, insight breakthroughs happen.
Like flow state.
Exactly like flow state,
Whoa.
or those flashes of insight. It's about the quality of the moment, not just its place on a timeline. Einstein's relativity, where time is an absolute, that aligns more with Chiros.
So achieving 10x results often means shifting focus from just filling time chronos to intentionally cultivating those qualitative moments, Chiros, where the real breakthroughs happen.
The book sums it up nicely. Advancement is Chiros, busy is Kronos.
Busy is Kronos. Ouch.
Okay.
And finally, to really sustain 10x growth, especially in business, the book outlines these 4 levels of entrepreneurship.
Right, with the ultimate goal being a self-managing company.
So level 1 is often the solopreneur or maybe the micromanager, deep in the details, often the bottleneck.
Level 2 is the leader applying who, not how. Starting to delegate, build trust, bring in those who's.
Okay.
Level 3, the self-managing company. This is where the day-to-day is effectively handled by a capable team. It frees the entrepreneur to focus on vision, strategy, innovation, operating in their unique ability.
And level 4.
Level 4 is the developer of a unique ability team, where ideally everyone on the team is operating mostly in their 20%, their own unique ability. That's where you get truly exponential growth and value creation.
Wow. So progressing through these levels, consciously escaping that purely bureaucratic time model.
That's where you see the biggest, fastest 10x jumps. It's about scaling your impact by building systems and empowering others.
No, the fully realized self-managing company allows the entrepreneur to truly live and work in their unique ability, constantly exploring, capitalizing on new opportunities without being bogged down in the day-to-day.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into 10x thinking, it becomes really clear that counterintuitively, it often is a more straightforward path than just aiming for 2x.
Yeah, because it forces that essential clarity. It ruthlessly eliminates distractions.
And ultimately unlocks the potential for truly non-linear progress.
It really encourages you, the listener, to take a hard look at your own 10x vision, to identify your critical 20%, those high-impact activities, and to get a deeper understanding of your own unique strengths, your unique ability.
So we leave you with these questions to think about. Are you truly committed to pursuing 10x growth somewhere in your life?
Are you ready, really ready, to let go of that 80% that might be holding you back?
Are you playing that infinite game of continuous evolution?
And are you ready for the kind of freedom and purpose that a 10x mindset can unlock?
Consider the profound transformation that could be within your reach. Just by embracing this powerful 10x way of thinking, focusing on qualitative growth, and truly leveraging the unique talents only you possess.